I'm employed with the Moscow Police Department.
What is your role there?
I am a detective.
A Moscow police detective takes the stand as Bryan Kohberger's attorneys fight to get more evidence collected against their client. I have 5 revelations from a hearing about cell phone records, videos, and a website. Thanks for joining me for Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Bryan Kohberger's lawyers have filed several motions basically asking Judge to order prosecutors to turn over additional information and evidence to them. Prosecutors have repeatedly said that they have turned over everything they have, and there's more coming. But Kohberger's attorneys haven't been buying it. They've filed several motions under seal, of course, which is frustrating to those of us covering the case because we don't know what's being discussed since we can't read it. But basically, Kohberger's lawyers have been telling Judge John Judge, hey, we need this information. We believe we're entitled to it, but we haven't received it. Judge, tell the prosecutors and the FBI to give us the information. Now, we know that some of this relates to 2 items that are really important in this case: cell phone tower data from the FBI and video. This is a Law and Crime legal alert. Google Incognito tracked users' browsing data without their knowledge. Mass Tort Alliance, one of our legal sponsors, is helping users file for compensation because Google misled users about the privacy of its Incognito browser. If you've used Google Incognito anytime since 2016, you can start your claim by answering less than 10 questions. Log on to incognitoclaims.com/crimefix. At a recent hearing, things got pretty heated when Kohberger's defense attorney, Ann Taylor, accused prosecutors of helping the FBI hide things from them related to cell phone evidence. Here's just a little bit from that hearing back on May 2nd.
So if I talk about things that are in the affidavit, and if I talk about things that we're seeking that the state wants to hide, I think that's fair game for the public to hear.
I do, for the record, need to clarify. The representations of the defense that we are intentionally withholding things that they're entitled to is just utter nonsense. We have strived. We are continuing every week to provide additional discovery. We have more discovery coming. We hope that much of what that they felt they had to file a motion to compel on, instead of being patient and wait, because our discovery deadline isn't until September.
So as you can see, it got a little testy in the courtroom. Latah County Prosecutor Bill Thompson called the allegation that his office was hiding evidence from the defense utter nonsense. Cell phone evidence, specifically cell phone tower evidence, will be very important in Bryan Kohberger's trial. A date for it has not yet been set, of course. Prosecutors and police say that is just one piece of evidence that links Kohberger to the murders of Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle back on November 13th of 2022. Kohberger maintains that he didn't commit the murders, but prosecutors say cell phone evidence shows that Kohberger was out and about that morning, traveling away from Moscow and back to Pullman, using a roundabout route after killing the 4 students. One thing they're relying on is CAS technology from the FBI. CAS stands for Cellular Analysis Survey Team. I'll have more on that technology in just a bit. But first, Kohberger's defense has been demanding additional information from the FBI about their cell phone tower analysis as they try to present the court with more information about a potential alibi for Kohberger, who claims he was out and about that night driving around and looking at the stars. Kohberger says he was in Pullman, Washington, and not Moscow, Idaho, as the state contends. So during a hearing a few days ago, Moscow Police Detective Lawrence Mowery testified about receiving some information about Kohberger's cell phone records from the FBI. He said the files were sent to him in December of 2022 and in April of last year.
Well, let's start with the 48-hour. What was contained in there?
There's over 48 hours. That was the AT&T records, the original records. And there's a 48-hour session log. I don't know which one you're asking about.
Let's go with the session log. What was in there?
Appeared to be the AT&T records that possibly were inputted, as well as some JSON files that were probably produced by CAS.
JSON files were produced by CAS bits. Is that right?
I would assume that. I didn't create those files.
What date were they created?
I believe one was in December. The other was in April.
December of what year?
22.
And April of what year?
23.
Could you tell who created those?
I could not.
How did you get those?
I was provided those via email
By who?
by mid-balance of the FBI.
What did you do with those?
Gave them as soon as I realized they were in my possession, I had contacted the prosecutor and gave them,
And that would be just yesterday, is that correct?
yes.
What did you do with them prior to that time?
They were sent to me, I put them in a folder and I didn't do anything else with them. That's why I forgot them.
So Detective Mowery says that he received these files and put them in a folder and forgot that he had them. He says he had been accessing them to prepare exhibits for the grand jury in the spring of 2023. Meanwhile, the defense has repeatedly asked for records related to CAST and analysis of cell towers related to Bryan Kohberger's cell phone the morning of the murders. The prosecutor has said he would turn that CAST report over when he received it. So did the police have this report and not turn it over to the prosecutors until last week? That's still unclear. Detective Mowery answered questions about how he prepared the exhibits for the grand jury to view.
After you put those call detail records in, do you have to do anything with cell towers?
With the AT&T, no, because the cell tower locations are in the AT&T CPR.
Okay. So you put that record in, the tower locations are already part of the call detail record that you put in?
Yes,
Is that something that you have electronic on your computer and then you open your CastViz program and just import it into the program?
yes, AT&T provides both PDF and text documents of the file. And I use the text document to put into CastViz to have it ingest.
And when you do that, what gets exported?
Nothing. At that point, nothing is exported or created that I know of.
Can you export the session that you're working on?
You can export a session log, yes.
Did you do that?
No.
How did you create screenshots?
By using the built-in Windows snip tool, as well as the built-in Windows game console, or they call it the game bar, which is just accessed by hitting Windows G. That allows you to record your screen.
Are those the only two things you did, is screen clip and screen record?
Yes,
How many times did you use call detail records in the CastViz program?
probably a dozen times. I'm not entirely sure.
So Detective Mowery said he took screen grabs from what he put into this program, but he didn't save the session. So Ann Taylor wonders why that didn't happen. She's also asking questions about what he entered into this CAST software to produce the exhibits.
Well, you're asked by somebody else who's actually doing this part of the investigation in the case to produce something for the grand jury to use. And I'm curious about what you relied on, to get to that point. I want to know all the records you relied on, all of the emails, all of the conversations you relied on to produce this thing that you're not the expert for.
So I wrote the affidavit for the AT&T records, received the AT&T records. Those records were also given to another investigator who was the main investigator doing the CPR records. Prosecution then asked me to provide or create some type of visualization of the call detail records and examine the call detail records for the 4 hours in question. That
Just to be really sure, when you talked about writing the 2 warrants for AT&T, we're talking about 2 warrants that relate to Bryan Kohberger. There were a lot of other warrants. Is that right?
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to be really clear on that. You've taken the CAST training. Is that right?
Yes.
And you know there's a way to save your session. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ann Taylor, of course, has her own expert who will look at all of this information and form his own conclusions. So Ann Taylor's curiosity stems from the fact that Detective Mowery wasn't the lead person dealing with the cell phone records, but he was asked to create exhibits for the grand jury to use to indict Bryan Kohberger on murder charges. Cell phone records are a critical piece of evidence, as I mentioned in this case. And you heard Detective Mowery say there's a 4-hour period of time that's critical. That would cover the time of the murders. Ann Taylor continued with questions about the files related to the cell phone records.
those three files that we just talked about, along with the CASVIZ 48 and the CASVIZ full, are those copied so that I can have those now?
Yes,
And you referred to emails. How many emails did you find when you were preparing for this hearing?
there was 5?
Are those included for me to have now as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
So now Ann Taylor has that information. Whether it's the information she was seeking from the FBI, we don't know. She had just received it that day. But she now has additional information from investigators, and Moscow police got these files about the cell phone data from the FBI more than a year ago. The prosecution then asked Detective Mowery about the records.
So you were talking about how it does not automatically save.
It does not.
Okay. And you chose not to save.
No, and in the exhibit that was provided, the actual text says that if you need to save your session file.
And can you tell me, why didn't you save these settings?
I was creating the visualization exhibits. That's what I was doing with that.
Any reason to save the settings?
No.
Could this be recreated or redone in the same fashion?
Yes, I can, again, open the software, drag the CDRs back in a very short time it is generated.
And it would give you the same information?
Yes,
Is that why you didn't save it?
yes.
I'm going to tell you more about what the defense asked Detective Mowery, including questions about videos. But first, I spoke with retired FBI agent and attorney Bobby Chacon recently about CAS technology and why it is so important in this specific case.
Yeah, the CAS is the Cellular Analysis Survey Team, and that report would be the data of Kohberger's cell phone movements that the FBI provided that assistance to Idaho for this case. It is an interesting situation because the FBI is not a party to this process. They're not a party to this proceeding. So they're not in court at these hearings. So it's almost like the court either has to compel the FBI to come in and provide that or compel the state to get it from the FBI. And I would assume that's what the defense is going to try for, to have the court compel the state to get it from the FBI, whatever it is that they want. Or they can, I guess they could subpoena the FBI into court, the FBI agents into court to provide that information or testimony about it. But I think that CAST in recent years has claimed to have technology that can greatly increase the accuracy of cell phone triangulation data, much more accurate than was previously done in the past. That actually, though, is subject to some controversy. There are some experts in that field that push back on the FBI's claims that of how accurate that can actually be.
Now, as we know, the prosecution is relying heavily on cell phone information in this case, and so is the defense.
Absolutely. Because not only is it a big part of his alibi, but it's also a big part of the prosecution's claims that he was at that house, not only on the night of the murder, but maybe on previous occasions as well. So I think that cell phone data is going to be a huge piece of the evidence in this case, both for the defense and for the prosecution. So, for his alibi and for their theory of the case that he was in that area, again, on the night of the murder and previously. So I think that you have the DNA on the knife sheath, you have the witness that was left alive in the house, and you have the cell phone data. Those are the three big pillars here, I believe. And so I think that cell phone data is definitely going to be heavily contested, both in these pretrial motions and hearings and at the trial in front of a jury. I think you're going to have a lot of expert testimony come in. It's going to be kind of a battle of the cell phone experts in this case.
I want to take a short break from this update on Bryan Kohberger's case to tell you about something that can help you learn more about the people you meet every day. It's a great website, and it's called truthfinder.com. Truthfinder is one of the world's largest public records search services. Truthfinder has just one goal, and that is to help you and me learn the truth about the people that we meet. Here's how it works. Simply log on to truthfinder.com and put in a name. Within minutes, maybe even seconds, you will get reports that include phone numbers, addresses, friends, family, criminal records, and much more. It will also show you sex offender statuses for the people who live in your neighborhood. The cases that I cover make it clear that you have to do everything you can to keep you and your loved ones safe. So right now, Crime Fix listeners and viewers can get 50% off of confidential background reports at truthfinder.com/LCCrimeFix. Log on to truthfinder.com/LCCrimeFix and start accessing information about almost anyone. So this is why that cast report is so important to both the prosecution and the defense. The prosecution says it's part of proving Kohberger is the murderer, while the defense believes it will help show that Kohberger wasn't near the crime scene. But prosecutors say there's other evidence that places Kohberger in the area of the King Road house the night of the murders, and that's video. Video is something else that came up during this hearing, specifically video from the Red Star coffee shop that's not far from the house on King Road.
And I have a specific one that a couple of them I want to ask you about. One is from Red Star Coffee Shop. Do you recall receiving that video?
I do not.
Okay. And are you aware that it was hooked in or brought in by Idaho State Police?
No.
How would I find out about those videos?
I don't know. You'd have to go through the USB drives to find out what was given.
Is there somebody else I should ask about specific ones to track where they went?
I don't know. I don't have that information.
Okay.
So you heard Ann Taylor. She wants to know more about videos that were collected from that Red Star coffee shop. It's on that main drag that goes into Moscow, Idaho from Pullman, and it's not far from the house on King Road, as you can see on the map. Why are these so important? She didn't say, but we know that police said previously that Kohberger's car was at the house on King Road the night of the murders. It was identified as a white Hyundai Elantra between the years of 2011 and 2013, but the FBI later expanded that window to 2011 through 2016. Kohberger's, of course, was a 2015 Hyundai Elantra. Now, the location of Bryan Kohberger's white Elantra the morning of the murders will also be critical. Was the Elantra seen at the King Road house the same one as Kohberger's? Right now, the defense says no, it wasn't. The defense also had questions about Moscow police attempting to find other videos or photos from that morning.
During the course of your work, did you make contact with the Idaho Department of Transportation to talk about some of the cameras that cover main roads coming into and out of Moscow?
Yes.
And did you attempt to make preservation of any items?
I did.
What items did you want preserved?
I was trying to see if they had saved video or still images from those files.
What did you learn?
That they do not retain those.
So Detective Mowery said those photos and videos were not retained by the Idaho Department of Transportation. He had also looked into whether a weather website called windy.com had photos that could be saved and that might show a vehicle.
What do you recognize that exhibit?
So these were emails that I was trying to find some kind of contact information for windy.com, a website that does weather-related information as well as has some links to images from cameras that are covering the highway.
And did you learn that you could have some still shots preserved?
I did.
Did you have some still shots preserved?
I did not.
Okay.
So Mowery said he didn't preserve the screenshots. Assistant Prosecutor Ashley Jennings followed up about the questions about searching windy.com for those images. Mowery said the day before the hearing, he looked on the site yet again.
From going onto their website yesterday, it's a public website, so I was able to go back to it. I don't remember exactly. I believe that within 24 hours, it's hourly. Within a week, it's daily. Within 12 months, it's monthly. And then after that, I believe it's I was seeing probably like 3 months or so.
Can you explain why you didn't preserve those images from windy.com?
When it was discussed with other investigators. We wrote the volume, gotten, I believe it was one image per day. Time frame wasn't where we were interested in, so we didn't capture that one, so
So there is no evidentiary value.
none that we did.
Okay. And have you since gone back and found some screenshots?
Yes,
It's what's available on the publicly available website,
anyone can go to wendy.com and grab the screenshots there.
and you've now done that.
I have,
Anything of evidentiary value?
no,
Have those been turned over anyway?
yes.
So Detective Mowery said he didn't find anything of evidentiary value. Most of the images were daytime images, but he turned them over anyway. So we know that now the prosecution has turned over additional information to the defense about Bryan Kohberger's cell phone records and additional information about video they were seeking. The hearing ended without any decisions being made other than the exhibits mentioned during the hearing were sealed by the judge. The hearing will be continued on Thursday, and it will be open to the public, and it will air right here on Law&Crime's YouTube channel. So stay tuned to see who that witness will be. That's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.